interested, if you haven't already read Josephus, this is a good version to read Josephus, the Penguin books. Other translations are very, very difficult Old English, so this is a good translation, the Penguin. The Jewish War. We're on the eve of the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. We know that there was a revolt, the Great Revolt against the Romans that took place in 66. It began in Caesarea. It went quickly throughout the Galilee and finally reaches Jerusalem. One of the Roman legion soldiers, being led by Titus, they're a Roman 10th Legion, and there are other, in fact, all of the Roman might is really gathering around Jerusalem, and they want to crush Jerusalem. One of the soldiers, without waiting for orders, and without a qualm for the terrible consequences of his action, but urged on by some unseen force, snatched up a blazing piece of wood, and climbing on another soldier's back, hurled the brand through a golden aperture, giving access on the northern side to the chambers built round the sanctuary. Everything went up in flames. This fire was so hot that we know when fire is hot, stone can burn, limestone can burn, wood can burn, the furniture in the temple can burn, the curtains can burn, everything can burn. The Protestants were no longer in a position to help. There were those that decided to fight in Jerusalem. Many of the priests did not fight. Some of the priestly families did fight. They preferred to pray. It's interesting, you see that even in this day when Israel is at war, most people do come together. Not all the priestly Cohenites fight. It's very important to understand. There was a swell of partisans in the city of Jerusalem. We're under siege. We're starving. There's a lack of water. There's a lack of food. And we're about to lose everything. The partisans were no longer in a position to help. Everywhere was slaughter and flight. Most of the victims were peaceful citizens, weak and unarmed, butchered wherever they were caught. The Romans are butchering everybody. Round the altar of God, the heap of corpses grew higher and higher, while down the sanctuary steps poured a river of blood, and the bodies of those killed at the top slithered to the bottom. The soldiers were like men possessed, and there was no holding them, nor was there any arguing with the fire. Caesar therefore led his staff inside the building and viewed the holy place of the sanctuary with its furnishings, which went far beyond the accounts circulating in foreign countries and fully justified their splendid reputation in our own. So we have an attack on Jerusalem, a brutal attack on Jerusalem. These are the words of Josephus Flavius, who is, if you remember, an Israeli general. One of the generals, one of the commanders of the forces that led in the Great Revolt against the Romans. He's found at a place in the Galilee called Josephus. And there he surrenders. And given that he has a skill in writing and an interest in history, he speaks with the person that became, who at the time was a general and becomes later on the emperor, Vespasian, and he said, listen, his soldiers, by the way, didn't give up. He decided to give up. He surrendered. The others killed themselves at Josaphat. He's taken by the Romans. They cut a deal. He says, I'll write for you. I'll write for history for the Romans. And he does. He's an eyewitness to many events. And he's pretty accurate. Now, he's Jewish. He's a former Israeli general. And he's also in the hands of the Romans. And so when we read these words, we have to understand this doesn't sound very biased. He's pretty straight up, and he's painting a picture that's not pretty for the Romans, and he's allowed to do it. Okay? It's very important when we read Josephus to understand that he is a Jewish person. He's not a traitor. He's not thought of as a traitor. He does surrender, but without his works, we are not filled in with a lot of history. Okay, so he really fills the gaps for every student of the Bible. Grief might well be a bitter for the destruction of the most wonderful edifice ever seen or heard of, both for its size and construction and for the lavish perfection of detail and the glory of its holy places. Yet we find very real comfort in the thought that fate is inexorable, not only towards living beings but towards buildings and sites. While the sanctuary was burning, looting went on the right and the left, and all who were caught were put to the sword. There was no pity for age, no regard for rank. Little children and old men, laymen and priests alike were butchered. Every class was held in the iron embrace of war, whether they defended themselves or cried out for mercy. Through the roar of the flames as they swept relentlessly could be heard the groans of the falling. Such were the height of the hill and the vastness of the blazing edifice that the entire city seemed to be on fire. While as for the noise, nothing could be imagined more shattering or more horrifying. There was the war cry of the Roman legions as they converged, the yells of the partisans encircled with fire and sword, the panicked flight of the people cut off above into the arms of the enemy, and their shrieks as the end approached. The cries from the hill were answered from the crowded streets, and now many who were wasted with hunger beyond speech found strength to mourn and wail when they saw the sanctuary in flames. I'm going to read that again in case anybody lost me. The cries from the hill were answered from the crowded streets, and now many who were wasted with hunger and beyond speech found strength to moan and wail when they saw the sanctuary in flames. It's a profound thing to read, that they found strength to mourn and to scream and to wail when they see the flames engulfing them. The only other time in the period of history of the Jewish people that we hear about this is during the Holocaust, when people are shot and people are brought into ovens and people are gassed to death, or people are boxed in and suffocated in cattle cars. And we hear it here as the city is engulfed with flames, as there's rivers of blood of the Jewish people being brutally butchered. Yet more terrible than the din were the sights that met the eye. The Temple Hill, enveloped in flames from top to bottom, appeared to be boiling up from its very roots. Yet the sea of flame was nothing to the ocean of blood, or the companies of killers to the armies of killed. Nowhere could the ground be seen between the corpses, and the soldiers climbed over heaps of bodies as they chased the fugitives. So this place is found in situ. This place is found as it fell on the year 70, when Titus came upon the Temple Mount, came upon Jerusalem, razed it to the ground. The burning, the flames are not only found here and found here, there are ashes in this dirt. Everywhere you go, there are ashes. In its chemistry, there are ashes. Same as the burnt house in the Herodian quarter. It was all burnt to the ground. And what we have today, if these rocks could talk, okay, and so we have a testimony of what was, we have a hope with what is, and a hope that is yet to come. And again, as I said at least 3 times, we're here, they're not. As the young people were singing and dancing, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live, the people of Israel live, the people of Israel live. And that's a testimony of God, because God restored this place and we're happy. Our bones rejoice. And you get to see it. You get to see the fulfillment of God's word and God's promises. and we get to mourn and cry and think about what was, think about the destruction, but also knowing that Am Yisrael lives, and she will live by the mercies of God and the grace of God, according to the promises of God. This for me means a lot. It means more than most of the things that I see in the land of Israel. Lots of mixed emotions when I'm on the Temple Mount, and just so glad that you can that we can share this experience together of just rock for some people. This is what built the temple. Some of this built the walls, and again, they were a testimony and a witness to what transpired here. And irrespective of theology and prophecy in terms of why God did it, and the truth of the matter is that the people of Israel live today. So with that, we can walk up here and see some of the archaeology, if you'd like, and